I arrive at the Mayfair Grill 15 minutes early, smoothing down my charcoal blazer as I step through the glass doors. The restaurant breathes wealth crystal chandeliers catching light in fractured patterns across cream tablecloths, waitstaff moving with practiced efficiency between tables of Portland's elite. My stomach tightens with familiar anxiety, the kind that always surfaces before family gatherings. Reservation for Brooks, I tell the hostess, trying to project confidence I don't feel. She smiles professionally. Of course, Miss Brooks, your family is already seated. Right this way. Already seated? The dinner invitation clearly said 7 o'clock. I check my watch 6:45. They must have changed the time without telling me. Again. The hostess leads me past hushed conversations and polite laughter toward the back of the restaurant where my family occupies a large round table beneath a private chandelier. My sister Vanessa sits with her back to me, blonde hair falling in perfect waves. My parents, Martin and Ellen, flank her like royal attendants. Ryan, my brother, barely looks up from his phone when I approach. At the far end sits Margaret Hayden, my grandmother, her silver hair swept into an elegant knot, sharp blue eyes, missing nothing. She's the only one who notices me first, her gaze assessing but unreadable. Sorry I'm late, I say, reaching for the empty chair beside Ryan. The invitation, said Seven. Sorry, Jamie, Vanessa interrupts, her voice carrying clearly over the ambient restaurant noise. This table's for the family, not the adopted one. The words land like a physical blow. Laughter ripples around the table. My father studies his wine glass. My mother adjusts her pearl necklace, lips pursed but silent. Ryan keeps scrolling, pretending not to hear. Only Margaret's expression changes a slight narrowing of those observant eyes. Heat floods my face as blood rushes to my cheeks. My heart hammers against my ribs so hard I'm certain everyone can see my blazer moving. Each breath becomes shallow, insufficient. Around us, neighboring tables quiet, eyes darting toward our table then away, pretending they haven't heard. I don't understand, I say, my voice barely audible even to myself. You all invited me here to celebrate Vanessa's business launch. Vanessa twirls her fork between manicured fingers. Did we? Must have been a courtesy invitation. You know, like when people say, we should get coffee sometime but never actually mean it. I can't process what's happening. After years of smaller slights, Christmas gifts that disappeared before New Year's, forgotten birthday dinners, last-minute vacation plan changes, this public humiliation feels calculated, deliberate. A memory surfaces. 7-year-old me, watching Vanessa unwrap her third Christmas present while I still held my only gift, a second-hand sketch pad. Mom's explanation echoing. Vanessa is our daughter, sweetie. It's different. I was invited here, I say, fighting to keep my voice steady, by all of you. A war rages inside me. Walk away now, preserve what's left of my dignity, or stay, prove I belong despite their cruelty. The designer in me notices details through the shock, the tightness at Margaret's mouth, the way her fingers tap against the tablecloth in what seems like disapproval. She hasn't joined their laughter. I think I've made a mistake coming here, I say finally, straightening my shoulders. Don't be so sensitive, Vanessa says, rolling her eyes. It was just a joke. Sit down. Something in her tone, the expectation of compliance, makes me hesitate. I've spent my life trying to earn their acceptance. Yet something shifts inside me as I take the seat beside Ryan, who finally glances up with the barest nod before returning to his screen. Dinner proceeds in a blur of expensive wine and elaborate courses. I pick at my food, contributing nothing to conversation. My family talks around me about Vanessa's new boutique, Ryan's latest girlfriend, an upcoming trip to Aspen. I'm invisible until the check arrives. The waiter approaches with a leather folder, which he places directly in front of me. Whenever you're ready, ma'am. I open it automatically, then freeze. $3,480. Vanessa leans forward, eyes gleaming. You said your design firm's doing great, right? Consider this your contribution to the family. 5 pairs of eyes fix on me, waiting. Testing. Even Ryan watches now, his phone forgotten. Only Margaret's gaze holds something different, calculation rather than mockery. My fingers tremble as I reach for my credit card. I can't afford this. The card will likely decline. 3 months of rent, gone in an evening where I wasn't even welcomed. But I refuse to give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. I need to use the restroom, I say, rising after signing the bill. In the bathroom, I grip the marble counter, watching my hands shake. The woman in the mirror looks composed, except for the flush across her cheekbones, the two bright eyes. 22 years of trying to earn my place in this family, and tonight they've made it undeniably clear. I never had one. The bathroom door opens. Margaret Hayden enters, her reflection appearing beside mine in the mirror. My dear, I saw what happened out there. I straighten, building walls against pity. Margaret has always been an enigma. Martin's mother, wealthy founder of Hayden Biotech, more observer than participant in family dynamics. We've barely exchanged more than pleasantries at holiday gatherings over the years. It's fine, I say automatically. I'm used to it. Margaret's blue eyes, so similar to my own, hold mine in the mirror. No one should be used to what I witnessed tonight. She reaches into her handbag, extracting a business card which she places on the counter between us. Come see me tomorrow at my office. There's something you deserve to know. I stare at the embossed card, Margaret Hayden, CEO, Hayden Biotech, my fingers hesitating before taking it. Why would you help me? I ask, suspicion warring with desperation. Because it's time someone did, she answers simply. 10 o'clock tomorrow. Don't be late. I arrive at Hayden Biotech headquarters at 9:45 the next morning. The gleaming glass tower pierces Portland's skyline like an accusation, reflecting clouds that threaten rain. My throat tightens as the elevator climbs to the executive floor, my reflection in polished doors looking more composed than I feel. The $3,480 charge from last night is still pending on my nearly maxed-out credit card. Margaret's executive assistant, a woman with silver-framed glasses and immaculate posture, greets me with professional warmth. Miss Brooks? Mrs. Hayden is expecting you. She leads me through double mahogany doors that open with barely a whisper. Margaret Hayden stands at a wall of windows, silhouetted against Portland's skyline. She turns as I enter, those penetrating blue eyes so unnervingly similar to mine assessing me with clinical precision. Jamie? Thank you for coming. She gestures toward a leather chair positioned before her desk. Please. I sit, back straight, hands folded in my lap. Years of navigating the Brooks family have taught me to armor myself with composure. Your card said 10 o'clock. I prefer being early. But a trait your biological parents shared. Margaret settles into her chair, leaning forward slightly. Especially your father. The words slice through my carefully maintained facade. My biological parents? Margaret slides a photograph across the polished desk surface. Two smiling faces look up at me, a bearded man with kind eyes and a woman with my exact jawline. They wear matching engineering jackets with Abbott Technologies logos. David and Sarah Chen, Margaret says. Brilliant engineers. And my dearest friends. You knew them? My voice sounds distant to my own ears, as if the words come from someone else. I recruited them personally from MIT. Margaret's fingers trace the edge of the photograph. They developed revolutionary medical imaging technology. Brilliant minds. We worked closely for nearly 8 years before the accident. Accident? A car crash. Black ice on the mountain highway. Margaret's voice remains even, but something in her eyes shifts. You were 6 years old. They just established your trust fund the month before. My fingertips hover over the photograph, not quite touching. Trust fund? Margaret opens a drawer, extracting a thick folder which she places between us. $680,000, every penny they'd saved, plus their life insurance. Designated specifically for your care and education. The room tilts slightly. I never knew about any trust fund. Because it vanished within a year of your adoption. Margaret's voice hardens as she spreads documents across the desk. Financial statements, bank transfers, property deeds. Each page reveals another betrayal. Trust documents with my name, transfer authorizations signed by Martin Brooks, deposits into Brooks family holdings. I was 63 when they died, Margaret continues, too old to raise a child. But my son Martin had just married Ellen. They were starting a family with Vanessa. It seemed perfect. Her mouth twists. I arranged the adoption myself, and transferred the trust fund to Martin as your legal guardian. My eyes lock on transaction dates that correspond with family milestones I'd been excluded from. Private school tuition for Vanessa, college fund deposits for Ryan. A Bahamas vacation property purchased 3 months after my adoption. They used me for my inheritance? The question emerges as barely more than a whisper. While sending you to public school in hand-me-downs, Margaret's voice carries controlled fury. And later, community college on student loans. Margaret's voice. Memories cascade through my mind, reframing themselves with brutal clarity. The summer Ryan got a new car for his 16th birthday while I took the bus to my after-school job. Christmas mornings when Vanessa unwrapped designer clothes while I received discount store basics. College applications where Martin dismissed my dreams of attending art school as impractical, while paying full tuition for Ryan's business degree. Not just neglect, calculated theft. I force myself to breathe, to process. Why are you showing me this now, after all these years? Margaret leans back in her chair, studying me. Because lately, they've been trying to push me out of my own company. What do you mean? Martin has been working the board behind my back. Her fingers tap against the armrest. Spreading rumors I have dementia, that I'm making erratic decisions, that I should be removed for my own good and the company's protection. The parallel slams into me: the same family that stole my inheritance now attempting to seize Margaret's company. So that's what last night's dinner was really about. They needed to establish that you're losing your mental faculties, while demonstrating their loving family dynamic to contrast with my supposed decline. Margaret nods. Your public humiliation served their narrative perfectly. The realization makes me feel simultaneously more valuable and more used than ever before. Not just the family disappointment, an actual obstacle in their path to greater wealth. Martin always felt entitled to family wealth. Margaret continues, her voice hardening. He grew up expecting to inherit everything. When I insisted on building something of my own, he viewed it as money being withheld from him. And now? He's desperate. Failed investments. Vanessa's boutique hemorrhaging money. Ryan's startup collapsed last year. Margaret's eyes narrow. They've already tried to forge my signature on company documents. My stomach drops. That's criminal. They're working with a lawyer who specializes in declaring elderly executives incompetent. Margaret's calm feels dangerous, like still water concealing undertow. They're patient and methodical. They'll wait for the right moment. When? The board votes next month on succession planning. Margaret rises, pacing slowly. Martin has been cultivating certain board members for years. Ellen hosts their wives for luncheons. They send birthday gifts to their children. I watch her move, seeing calculation behind the apparent agitation. This woman built an empire through strategic thinking. Nothing about this conversation is accidental. Why would you help me after all this time? I ask finally. You could have told me about my parents years ago. Margaret stops, turning to face me fully. I made a terrible mistake entrusting you to my son. I believed his promise to raise you as his own. Regret flashes across her features. When I realized what was happening, you were already grown. What good would it do to tell you then? She moves to a small bar, pouring 2 glasses of water. But now, they think they can erase us both. Let's make sure they regret that. The shift in language, us both, rings through me. For the first time in my life, someone with actual power stands aligned with me against the Brooks family. I have resources, Margaret continues. Legal teams, financial investigators, corporate connections your father and brother have never managed to cultivate. She returns, offering me a glass. Thomas Reed, my trusted accountant, has already begun tracing the missing funds. Diana Wallace, my corporate attorney, is prepared to file charges if you wish. I take the water, mind racing through implications. Not just a revelation of past wrongs, but an alliance against future ones. Not simply an explanation for my childhood of subtle cruelties, but a pathway to justice. Why would you help me after all this time? I ask again, needing absolute clarity before committing. Margaret's eyes, so like mine, hold steady. Because I owe it to your parents. And because it's time someone stood up to my son. I look down at the photograph again, at the smiling faces of strangers who gave me life, who intended to give me security, whose legacy was stolen by people who claimed to love me. Something shifts inside me, like a door unlocking. I'm no longer just the mistreated adopted daughter. I have options, allies, a true history, and for the first time in my life, I have power. I kneel in the dusty storage unit, surrounded by cardboard boxes labeled in my childhood handwriting. 1 week since meeting with Margaret has transformed my understanding of the past, turning childhood memories into evidence of calculated exploitation. The key to this unit had been hidden in my apartment for years, taped beneath my desk drawer, a secret even from myself. There has to be something here, I mutter, wiping sweat from my forehead. The August heat turns the metal container into an oven. My fingers leave tracks through dust on a plastic bin marked school papers. I lift the lid and find nothing but old report cards and art projects. A gold star still clinging to a faded drawing of what might be our family, 4 tall figures, and one small one standing apart. 3 hours of searching yields nothing until I reach the final box, tucked in the far corner. Inside, beneath a stack of birthday cards signed by classmates but not family, I find a manila envelope. My biological parents' handwriting covers the front, Jamie's future. My hands shake so badly I nearly drop it. Inside, photocopies of trust documents, the originals dated 3 months before the car crash that killed them. And emails, dozens of them, between my biological parents and Margaret, discussing the trust terms and her role as executor before Martin's adoption. The trust documents spell it out in black and white. $680,000 designated specifically for the care, well-being, and education of our daughter, Jamie Elizabeth. Not for vacation homes, not for Vanessa's private school, for me. I pull out my phone and capture photos of every page, my fingers trembling with something beyond rage, the first taste of power. Legal proof that validates everything Margaret told me. Evidence that will force them to see me. Diana Wallace reviews the documents in Margaret's sunlit office the following morning, her expression growing grimmer with each page. This establishes clear misappropriation, she says, adjusting her glasses. The language is explicit about how these funds were to be used. Thomas Reed nods, spreadsheets spread before him on the polished conference table. I've cross-referenced the dates with Brooks' family purchases. His finger traces a timeline he's constructed. Their Aspen vacation home was bought 3 months after you were adopted. The timing aligns precisely with the largest withdrawal from your trust. Margaret watches me from the head of the table, those sharp blue eyes assessing my reaction. You found these yourself? In your storage unit? Yes, I say. I remembered my biological parents kept copies of important documents. I preserved the chain of custody. Everything's dated and photographed exactly as I found it. Margaret's lips curve in the faintest smile. Well done, Jamie. 3 days later, I stood on the doorstep of the Brooks family home, clutching a leather portfolio containing copies of the trust documents and financial records. My heartbeat pounds in my ears, but my hands remain steady. I've rehearsed this moment for days. Ellen answers the door with practiced surprise. Jamie, we weren't expecting you. Family dinner tonight, right? I ask, stepping past her without waiting for an invitation. I thought I'd join. The dining room gleams with expensive familiarity. Crystal chandelier, mahogany table, set with china, that costs more than my monthly rent. Martin sits at the head, Ryan and Vanessa flanking him like courtiers. Their expressions shift from annoyance to confusion as Ellen ushers me in. Jamie decided to join us, she announces, voice tight with forced pleasantry. How? Unexpected, Martin says, not bothering to hide his displeasure. I take the empty seat beside Ryan, who barely glances up from his phone. I wouldn't miss family dinner, I say, placing my portfolio beside my plate. Dinner proceeds with stilted conversation. Vanessa dominates, discussing her boutique success while shooting pointed glances my way. I eat methodically, waiting for the perfect moment. It comes when Ellen brings out dessert creme brulee served in crystal dishes. I know what you did with my parents' money, I say, breaking the delicate sugar crust with my spoon. The room freezes. Martin sets down his wine glass slowly. What nonsense has my mother been filling your head with? I open the portfolio and remove the trust documents, sliding them across the table. I have the original trust documents, and the transfers to Brooks family holdings. Ellen pales visibly, fingers clutching her napkin. Vanessa scoffs, examining her manicure with exaggerated boredom. But Ryan, for once, looks up from his phone, suddenly interested. These could be fake. Martin says, not touching the papers. They're not, I reply. The bank has confirmed their authenticity. Vanessa reaches for the documents, flipping through them with growing disdain. So what? You've always cost more than you were worth. The words should sting, but instead they confirm everything I've come to understand. I take a slow sip of water, savoring the shift in power. Margaret knows everything, I say calmly, and she's helping me take back what's mine. Martin's face darkens. My mother is not well. No one will believe either of you. We'll see who they believe, I reply, gathering my evidence and standing. The board meeting should be interesting. I walk out without looking back, their silence more satisfying than any response could be. The following morning, Margaret convenes a meeting with loyal board members in the Hayden Biotech conference room. Sunlight streams through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the Portland skyline beyond. I stand beside her, wearing a charcoal suit that matches her own, our similar blue eyes scanning the room. "Thank you all for coming," Margaret says. "Jamie has something important to share." I present the evidence, methodically, trust documents, financial transfers, the pattern of misappropriation spanning 2 decades. The board members listen with growing concern, particularly Elizabeth Wilson, who served alongside Margaret since the company's founding. "I've questioned Martin's financial decisions for years," Elizabeth says when I finish, "particularly the property acquisitions that seemed unnecessary for company operations." Thomas Reed distributes his forensic accounting report, pointing to highlighted sections. This pattern of financial impropriety extends beyond the trust fund. Martin has been using similar tactics with company resources. For the first time, I feel myself standing not as an outsider seeking validation, but as someone with allies, powerful ones. The corporate battlefield offers clarity that family dinners never could. Margaret steps forward. "Jamie has more business acumen than Martin ever did. She found these documents independently and preserved their integrity like a seasoned investigator." The validation washes over me, not as empty praise, but as recognition of capabilities I've developed despite, or perhaps because of, their cruelty. As the meeting concludes with promises of support, a new question forms. Should I push for immediate legal action, or build a more comprehensive case first? Margaret seems to read my thoughts. "Strategic patience," she murmurs as the board members file out. "We've waited decades for justice. A few more weeks won't hurt." I nod, understanding that the storm I've set in motion is just beginning to build. 2 weeks later, I sat at Margaret's rosewood desk, surrounded by stacks of financial records. Morning light streams through the bay windows of her home office, illuminating dust motes that dance between us. The methodical quiet feels worlds away from that humiliating dinner at the Mayfair Grill. We need to think like they do, calculating and patient. I tell Margaret, spreading out color-coded folders, immediate satisfaction won't win against people who've been manipulating the system for decades. Margaret nods, blue eyes sharp despite her 79 years. "You're exactly right, Jamie. Martin has always played the long game. He's been positioning himself for my retirement since he turned 40. I've spent the past 14 days studying Hayden Biotech's corporate bylaws until my eyes burned, highlighting succession protocols and board voting requirements. The designer in me appreciates the elegant structure of corporate governance, rules built upon rules, each serving a specific purpose." Diana Wallace, Margaret's trusted attorney, taps her pen against a legal pad. "We're developing 3 parallel strategies. First, documenting the trust fund misappropriation for potential criminal charges. Second, gathering evidence of Martin's questionable decisions as COO. Third, countering the dementia rumors with independent medical evaluations." "The timing is critical," Reed adds, his accountant's precision evident in every word. "We need everything in place before the board meeting next month." The person I was at that restaurant table, humiliated and blindsided, feels like someone I barely recognize now. That Jamie paid a $3,480 dinner bill out of shock and shame. This Jamie plots a meticulous course toward justice, toward something that finally feels like control. Margaret slides a folder toward me. "These are my notes on each board member, their voting history, business relationships, vulnerabilities." Elizabeth Wilson and James Peterson have always been skeptical of Martin's leadership style. They could be our strongest allies. I scan the pages, absorbing details about people I've never met, who now hold pieces of my future in their hands. And our biggest opponents? Gerald Hamilton and Patricia Davis. Both golf with Martin regularly and have investment ties to his side projects. The magnitude of what we're attempting settles over me. This isn't just about a stolen trust fund anymore. It's about wresting control of a multi-million-dollar company from people willing to declare their own mother mentally incompetent. Later that afternoon, Reed and I hunker down in Margaret's library, surrounded by years of company financial records. The mahogany shelves tower around us, filled with leather-bound classics Margaret has collected over decades. We work in companionable silence, interrupted only by occasional observations. "Look at this." Reed says, pointing to a spreadsheet. 4 acquisitions of small research firms in the past 3 years, all formerly owned by Martin's college roommates from Stanford. I lean over his shoulder, studying the numbers. And all purchased at significantly above market value. Exactly. Reed's finger traces down columns of figures. The board approved each one based on Martin's recommendation, without independent valuation. As independent valuation. While Reed continues his analysis, I examine offshore banking documents, tracing a complicated web of transfers. Ellen's brother Thomas appears on the paperwork for accounts in the Cayman Islands. 3 deposits match exactly to funds withdrawn from company research grants. We work through dinner, building comprehensive dossiers on each questionable transaction. Margaret's PR team provides updates on their counter-strategy against the dementia rumors, arranging interviews with financial publications, where Margaret demonstrates her sharp business acumen. Diana joins us later, spreading legal documents across an antique coffee table. We're preparing both criminal and civil complaints, she explains. But we won't file anything until we have the complete picture. This isn't about one victory, it's about systematic dismantling of their position. The library grows darker as evening approaches. Margaret orders food, and we eat absently, focused on our tasks. The comprehensive approach feels right, methodical rather than emotional, strategic rather than reactive. 2 days later, I'm walking to my car after meeting Reed at a downtown coffee shop when I noticed a black sedan parked across the street and a man with a telephoto lens pointed directly at me. My stomach drops as the camera clicks rapidly. That night, I return to my apartment to find the door slightly ajar. Everything looks untouched at first glance, but my designer's eye for detail notices subtle differences, papers on my desk rearranged, laptop positioned at a different angle, file cabinet drawer not fully closed. Nothing appears to be missing, but the message is clear. They're watching. They're searching. They know we're building a case. I called Margaret immediately. They broke into my apartment. Nothing taken. But they went through my papers. Her voice remains steady. Move everything important to the secure storage facility. Reed arranged. Then come stay at my house. It's time to accelerate our timeline. Instead of fear, I feel a strange surge of validation. If they're scared enough to break the law, we're on the right track. Indeed, Margaret replies. Now we adapt. Reed will arrange counter-surveillance starting tomorrow. I look around my violated apartment, at the subtle evidence of their desperation, and smile for the first time in days. They wouldn't be taking such risks if they weren't afraid of what we've found. A day before the board meeting, I arranged the manila folders in a perfect row across Margaret's mahogany conference table, each one labeled with a board member's name. Inside each folder rests the same devastating evidence: trust documents, bank transfers, corporate memos, all meticulously organized to tell the story of systematic exploitation. Everything's in place, I say, looking up at Margaret. Legal briefs are filed but sealed. Diana has the whistleblower paperwork ready for Alan. Margaret nods, her silver hair catching the afternoon light streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows of her corner office. The independent medical evaluation came back yesterday. Perfect cognitive scores across all assessments. Reed enters, his normally composed demeanor showing rare excitement. I've secured protection for Alan Thompson. As head accountant for 15 years, his testimony about the transfer patterns will be unimpeachable. I run my fingertips along the edge of one folder, a habit from my design work when checking paper stock quality. This feels different than confronting them at dinner. More consequential. It is, Margaret says, her voice steady. You challenged them at dinner. Now we're dismantling their entire plan. Diana Wallace appears in the doorway, legal briefcase in hand. The sealed court documents are filed. One call from me activates everything. I've spent weeks learning the complexities of corporate governance, succession planning, whistleblower statutes, all while maintaining my design business. Margaret has coached me through board politics, identifying allies and potential opponents. We've built something far more potent than emotional confrontation, a comprehensive legal and corporate strategy. The PR team is ready too, Reed adds. They've prepared responses for every attack we anticipate from the family. I study the spreadsheet on my tablet, a detailed timeline of evidence collection and strategic positioning. Each completed task gives me a deeper sense of readiness, of growing into something beyond the woman who stood shocked at that restaurant table. Tomorrow the board members get their briefing packets, I say, checking off another item. By Friday, we'll have 7 of the 11 members confidentially informed. Margaret squares a folder with precise movements. We're not claiming victory yet, we're simply ready. My phone buzzes with a news alert. The headline flashes across my screen. Billionaire founder struggles with mental decline, family concerned. I thrust the phone toward Margaret. They've gone public. Within minutes, our phones light up with notifications. Reed's computer pings with email alerts. Diana steps out to take a call, her face grim. Martin moved faster than anticipated, Margaret says, scanning the article. He's quoted extensively about my concerning lapses in judgment and their heartbreaking decision to intervene for the company's protection. Reed turns his laptop to show us Vanessa's Instagram post. A staged photo of her holding Margaret's framed photograph, caption reading, "Family comes first." Sometimes loving someone means protecting them from themselves. Elder care. Family duty. They're positioning themselves as concerned caretakers, Diana says, returning. And you, Jamie, as... She hesitates. As what? I ask. A manipulative outsider exploiting an elderly woman's confusion for financial gain, she reads from her phone. My stomach drops. They're attacking me too. Reed nods grimly. It's smart. They need to discredit both of you simultaneously. My phone rings, my largest client. After a brief conversation, my hand trembles as I set it down. They're pulling their contract. Said they can't be associated with the controversy. 3 more similar calls follow over the next hour. My design firm built from nothing, through student loans and sleepless nights, is collapsing under the weight of accusations. I stand at the window, staring down at the city streets 20 floors below. Maybe this was a mistake. I'm losing everything I've built. For what? Justice against people who've never cared about me? Margaret joins me at the window, her reflection appearing beside mine in the glass. You've spent your life surviving their cruelty. Now you're going to fight, and I'll fight beside you. Something in her voice, the unwavering certainty, steadies me. I turn from the window. You're right. We adjust the strategy to include public relations. We fight back. The next morning, I arrived at Margaret's office before dawn. Diana and Reed join us an hour later, carrying fresh evidence and updated legal filings. All evidence is secured off-site. Reed confirms. Martin can't access or tamper with anything. The financial case is airtight, he adds, closing his leather portfolio with finality. Diana nods in agreement. The legal team is standing by. Everything is in place. Margaret rises from her chair, standing straighter than I've seen in weeks. We have everything we need now. I check my watch, 7:30 a.m. The emergency board meeting is at 9. That gives us 90 minutes for final preparations. Reed's phone buzzes. He reads the message, face darkening. Intel from board member Wilson. Martin is bringing Dr. Peterson to the meeting, a neurologist specializing in geriatric cognitive assessment. They're planning to have me declared incompetent on the spot, Margaret says, voice steady despite the threat. I gather my presentation materials, sliding them into my leather portfolio. My hand no longer trembles. Tomorrow we end this, all of it. The path before us is clear. No more enduring humiliation at dinner tables, no more watching these people take what isn't theirs. Today we stand our ground. Today we fought back. Ready for battle? Margaret asks in the doorway. Despite the strain of recent weeks, she stands tall, silver hair swept into an elegant knot, her blue eyes so much like my own, sharp and clear. As ready as I'll ever be. She squeezes my hand. Remember what we discussed. Martin will come in confident, thinking he's won before the first word. That's his weakness. Board members filter in, filling the long table with quiet conversation and curious glances. At precisely 9 o'clock, the doors swing open. Martin strides in with a stranger, a balding man in his 50s carrying a leather portfolio. Good morning, Martin announces, voice pitched to carry authority. Before we begin today's agenda, I've asked Dr. James Peterson to join us. My stomach knots. This wasn't part of our intelligence. Margaret's hand tightens almost imperceptibly on the armrest of her chair. Dr. Peterson is a leading neurologist, specializing in cognitive decline in older adults. Martin continues, placing a hand on the doctor's shoulder. He's here at my request, as a concerned son. Ellen slips in behind them, distributing blue folders to each board member. A letter from our family, she murmurs, not meeting anyone's eyes. We've been hesitant to bring this forward, but recent events have forced our hand. I watch 12 pairs of hands open identical folders. The board chairman, William Blackwell, frowns as he scans the contents. "What's this about, Martin?" he asks. A difficult but necessary conversation. Martin moves to the head of the table, directly opposite Margaret. "Mother, we've noticed changes in your behavior over the past year. Memory lapses, confusion about simple matters, difficulty tracking conversations." Margaret's expression remains neutral, but I catch the flash of anger in her eyes. "Quite frankly," Martin continues, "we're concerned about your ability to continue leading this company." The door opens again. Vanessa enters, eyes red-rimmed, clutching a tissue. She takes a seat beside her father, her performance of the grieving granddaughter already in full swing. "It breaks my heart seeing grandmother struggle," she says, voice quavering perfectly. "Last week, she couldn't remember my birthday. The week before, she got lost driving to the house she's lived in for 40 years. Lies. All lies." I grip my pen so tightly it threatens to snap. Ryan follows, laptop in hand. "Board members, I've compiled some video evidence you should see before making any decisions today." The lights dim. On the projection screen, carefully edited clips show Margaret looking confused at various company functions. A moment where she pauses before answering a question. Another where she searches for a name. All normal human moments, stripped of context and stitched together to create the illusion of decline. Dr. Peterson has reviewed these recordings, Martin says when the lights come back up, along with our family's observations. The neurologist clears his throat. "Without a full examination, I can only offer preliminary observations. However, these videos display several concerning indicators consistent with early-stage cognitive impairment." I steal a glance at the board. Several members exchange worried looks. Elizabeth Wilson, Margaret's longtime ally, studies her folded hands. "I can almost see the momentum shifting away from us. I move that we hold an immediate vote of no confidence," Martin announces. "For the protection of this company and my mother's legacy, we need to act now, before any lasting damage is done." Chairman Blackwell looks troubled. "This is quite sudden, Martin. Perhaps we should—" "With respect, William, the evidence is clear. My mother needs help, not more responsibility. We can vote today, or wait until a public mistake forces our hand. I know which I prefer." The room grows heavy with tension. This is happening too fast. I catch Margaret's eye and she gives me the slightest nod. I rise to my feet. "Mr. Chairman, before this vote takes place, I'd like to address the board." Martin's face tightens. "This is a board matter, Jamie. You have no standing here." "Actually, she does," Margaret says calmly, "as my invited guest and a stakeholder in Hayden Biotech's future." Chairman Blackwell nods. "We'll hear from Miss Brooks." I move to the front of the room, my heart thundering against my ribs. "Everything we've prepared for comes down to this moment. Before you vote, you should know what this family did to me and what they're trying to do to Margaret Hayden." I pull up my own presentation. The first slide shows trust documents dated 22 years ago. When I was 6 years old, my parents died in a car accident. They left behind a trust fund of $680,000 for my care and education. Margaret Hayden, their friend and colleague, arranged for her son Martin to adopt me. Martin stands. "This is irrelevant to today's." "She transferred that money to Martin Brooks to ensure my future." I continued, raising my voice slightly. "Within 1 year, every cent had disappeared into an account called Brooks Family Holdings." Murmurs ripple through the room. The door opens and Thomas Reed enters, carrying a thick folder. "This is Thomas Reed, former senior accountant for Hayden Biotech." I say. "Mr. Reed has prepared a forensic analysis of both my trust fund theft and, more relevantly, Martin Brooks' financial decisions as COO." Reed distributes his reports to stunned board members. "You'll find documented evidence of systematic self-dealing, including kickbacks from vendors, inflated expense reports, and questionable property acquisitions using company funds." Martin's face flushes dark red. "These are outrageous accusations." Diana Wallace enters next, her confident stride matching her reputation as one of Portland's top corporate attorneys. "This is Diana Wallace," I continue. "She's brought medical reports from 3 independent specialists who examined Margaret Hayden last month. All confirm her cognitive function is well above average for her age, with no signs of impairment." Diana hands copies to the board members. You'll also find a sworn statement from Dr. Peterson's office manager, confirming he never examined Mrs. Hayden and was paid $50,000 by Martin Brooks 3 days ago. The neurologist pales, gathering his materials. I should go. Stay right there, Chairman Blackwell orders, his voice steel. The doors open one final time. An older man in a rumpled suit enters carrying a small hard drive. This is Alan Reed, retired company accountant. He maintained backup records of all financial transactions during his tenure, including those Martin attempted to delete from company servers. Ascays. The boardroom erupts in shocked conversations. Martin pounds the table. These are fabrications. She's manipulating all of you with lies and forged documents. Vanessa jumps to her feet, mascara streaking down her cheeks. She's not even real family. She's just some stray they pitied. The outburst echoes in the sudden silence. Board members stare at Vanessa, several reaching for their phones, recording. The careful, concerned family narrative collapses in an instant. The videos, Elizabeth Wilson says suddenly. Ryan, you edited those clips of Margaret, didn't you? Ryan's eyes darted nervously toward his father. I just, put together moments that showed what we were concerned about. So you manipulated video evidence to mislead this board? Blackwell asks. Not manipulated, just highlighted the important parts, Ryan stammers. I take a deep breath. They also tried to forge Margaret's signature on company documents. 3 weeks ago, they attempted to transfer control of Margaret's voting shares to Martin. Diana Wallace produces a thick report. This is a forensic handwriting analysis confirming the forgery. We've already filed this evidence with the district attorney's office. Martin's face has gone from red to ashen. This is all a misunderstanding. We were only trying to protect. Enough. Chairman Blackwell's voice cuts through the chaos. This meeting is adjourned. No votes will be taken today. He turns to the company counsel, sitting at the far end of the table. Judge Morrison, given the serious nature of these allegations, I believe we need a formal investigation before proceeding further. The judge nods gravely. I concur, and I suggest we secure all company records immediately. As security escorts Martin, Ellen, Vanessa, and Ryan from the boardroom, Margaret catches my eye. For the first time in weeks, she smiles a smile of fierce, vindicating pride. The battle isn't over, but the tide has turned irrevocably in our favor. I stand at the polished podium, facing the semicircle of board members seated behind the mahogany conference table. 1 month has passed since Ryan's accidental confession about the edited videos. 1 month of final preparations for this formal hearing. The boardroom of Hayden Biotech stretches before me, floor-to-ceiling windows framing Portland's skyline. Every seat is filled board members, legal counsel, witnesses. Margaret sits to my right, ramrod straight despite her 79 years, those sharp blue eyes fixed on her son. Martin slouches in his chair across the room, designer suit failing to mask his unease. Ellen perches beside him, fingers constantly adjusting her pearl necklace. Vanessa glares openly, arms crossed over her chest. Ryan stares at the floor, already defeated. Judge Morrison, attending as company counsel, calls the hearing to order. This board has convened to address serious allegations against current COO Martin Brooks and to determine appropriate actions regarding company leadership. I take a slow breath, centering myself. The moment I've prepared for has arrived. Miss Brooks, please present your evidence, Judge Morrison says, nodding toward me. The projector illuminates behind me as I begin. My voice emerges stronger than I expected. Board members, what I'm about to share reveals a pattern of deception spanning decades. I click to the first slide, my parents' original trust documents. When I was 6 years old, my biological parents died in a car accident. They left behind a trust fund of $680,000 for my care and education. Martin shifts in his seat. This has nothing to do with company business. It establishes a pattern, Mr. Brooks, Judge Morrison replies. Continue, Miss Brooks. I advance through the meticulously prepared slides. Bank transfers from my trust to Brooks Family Holdings. Property deeds for vacation homes purchased months after my adoption. Tuition payments for Vanessa's private school, Ryan's college. They stole from an orphaned child. I say, my voice steady despite the emotion building in my chest. Then they tried to steal from an elderly woman. Thomas Reed rises next, presenting his complete financial analysis. My forensic examination reveals a consistent pattern of self-dealing by Martin Brooks throughout his tenure as COO. His laser pointer highlights suspicious transactions, offshore accounts, questionable acquisitions benefiting Martin's college friends. Board members lean forward, expressions shifting from skepticism to concern to outright horror. The chairman, James Wilson, removes his glasses twice to clean them, as if clearing his vision might somehow change what he's seeing. Diana Wallace follows with documentation of attempted forgeries. We have sworn statements from 3 employees confirming they witnessed Martin Brooks attempting to replicate Margaret Hayden's signature on company documents. These are fabrications, Martin stands, face flushed. My mother has been manipulated by this opportunist who's never been a real family. Margaret rises slowly, commanding attention without raising her voice. Real family, Martin? Was it real family when you emptied a dead couple's trust fund meant for their orphaned daughter? Her voice carries decades of disappointment. Was it real family when you sent Jamie to community college on loans while paying for Vanessa's apartment in Paris? The boardroom falls silent. Margaret continues, each word precise and devastating. My son has spent his life believing he deserves whatever he wants simply because it exists. He believed he deserved Jamie's trust fund. He believes he deserves my company. The evidence before you shows exactly what that sense of entitlement has cost this company and this family. Martin's attorney attempts damage control, presenting medical opinions questioning Margaret's competence, but these wither under comparison with the 3 independent assessments Diana arranged. His financial explanations collapse when confronted with Reed's forensic documentation. The family's unified front crumbles as pressure mounts. Ellen claims ignorance of financial details. Ryan mumbles apologies, eyes never leaving the floor. Only Vanessa maintains her defiance, finally exploding from her chair. She manipulated all of you. Her finger jabs toward me, voice rising to a near shriek. She's always been jealous of our family, always wanted what was ours. The outburst hangs in the air, damning in its naked hostility. What exactly was yours, Vanessa? I ask quietly. My parents' money? Your grandmother's company? Or just the satisfaction of making me feel unwelcome for 22 years? Chairman Wilson clears his throat. I believe we've heard sufficient testimony. The board will adjourn to deliberate. 40 minutes later, they return. The chairman's expression reveals the decision before he speaks. This board votes unanimously to remove Martin Brooks as Chief Operating Officer of Hayden Biotech, effective immediately. His gaze sweeps the room. Furthermore, Martin Brooks, Ellen Brooks, Vanessa Brooks, and Ryan Brooks are permanently banned from company premises. Martin half rises. You can't. The evidence speaks for itself, Mr. Brooks. Wilson cuts him off. This company deserves better leadership. Judge Morrison stands. Based on evidence presented today, I am referring this matter to the district attorney for consideration of criminal charges including forgery, financial fraud, and misappropriation of trust funds. The transformation is immediate and absolute. Martin collapses back into his chair, the color draining from his face. Ellen's hand flies to her throat. Vanessa's defiance crumbles into disbelief. The power that once allowed them to humiliate me at dinner, to saddle me with a $3,480 bill for their amusement, evaporates like morning dew. Margaret rises, back straight, voice clear. As founder and majority shareholder of Hayden Biotech, I formally announce my chosen successor for company leadership. She turns to me, extending her hand. Jamie Brooks has demonstrated not only the business acumen this company requires, but the integrity it deserves. The board members nod in approval. People who once might have dismissed me just as my family did, now look at me with respect, bordering on admiration. Security will escort the Brooks family from the building, Chairman Wilson announces. I watch as 2 uniformed guards approach my former family. Martin attempts one final protest but falls silent under the weight of public humiliation. They walk out Martin, Ellen, Vanessa, Ryan, a procession of defeat. Judge Morrison approaches after they've gone. The court will order restitution of the $2.1 million that should have accrued from your trust fund, with interest. He shakes his head. Financial fraud of this magnitude carries significant penalties. The following hour passes in a blur of congratulations and planning. The board unanimously approves filing a civil lawsuit against the Brooks family. Margaret's legal team begins the process of recovering stolen assets. My transformation feels complete, from humiliated adoptee forced to pay for family dinners to respected executive with a voice that matters. Near the end of the meeting, Margaret pulls me aside, her hand surprisingly strong on my arm. Your parents would be so proud of you today. she says, her blue eyes so like mine, bright with emotion. Not because you won, but because of how you won. With intelligence, with dignity. I search her face, finding no trace of the pity I once dreaded. I couldn't have done this without you. No, she agrees with a small smile, but you did it for both of us. My family forgot the difference between inheritance and integrity. You never did. As we leave the boardroom together, I realize something profound has shifted inside me. For years, I measured my worth by their acceptance, collecting their slights like painful treasures. Now, watching Margaret walk beside me chosen family rather than forced, I understand that belonging isn't something you earn through submission. It's something you build through shared values. The elevator doors close on the boardroom behind us, sealing away 2 decades of longing for a family that never truly existed. Ahead lies something better, a future built on truth rather than pretense, on earned respect rather than demanded loyalty. Ready? Margaret asks, as the elevator begins its descent. I nod, feeling lighter than I have in years. More than ready. I stand at the edge of Lake Oswego, morning light splintering across the water. 3 months have passed since Margaret slipped away in her sleep, her hand in mine, a peaceful end to a remarkable life. The reading of her will surprised no one but shocked everyone. She left everything to me, the company, the fortune, this lakeside mansion with its sweeping views and echoing hallways. Miss Brooks? Thomas Reed approaches, documents tucked under his arm. The contractors need final approval on the renovations. I nod, turning from the water. Let's make it official. Inside, workers transform what was once Margaret's private study into the administrative heart of the Hayden Foundation for Abused and Neglected Children. Where Martin once plotted company takeovers, social workers will soon coordinate foster family support. Where Vanessa demanded more than her share, children who never had enough will find resources and hope. The dedication ceremony is scheduled for next month. Diana Wallace says, joining us in what was once the grand dining room. We've already received confirmation from the mayor and several state officials. I scan the renovation plans while my phone buzzes with another news alert. Martin's sentencing was last week, 3 years in federal prison for financial fraud, his designer suits traded for prison denim. Ellen sold their Aspen vacation home at a loss, the Lake Oswego property seized by federal authorities. She lives in subsidized housing now, her social circle evaporating once the money dried up. Did you see this? Diana slides her tablet toward me. On screen, Vanessa's latest attempt to rebrand herself as a lifestyle influencer drowns under thousands of comments linking to the viral video of her sneering, "She's not family" at the Mayfair Grill. The internet never forgets. Ryan works at the Rusty Anchor now, a dive bar on the industrial side of Portland. I spotted him there last month when meeting a contractor, his once perfect hair limp, shoulders hunched as he cleared tables. He pretended not to see me. I pretended the same. The quarterly reports came in? Thomas says, changing subjects. Profits up 18% since the leadership transition. Employee satisfaction scores at record levels. I accept the folder with a smile. Let's review them after the foundation meeting. 1 year passes like water through fingers. The calendar in my office marks 12 months since Margaret's passing with a small silver star. I run my fingers over it, remembering the woman who changed everything. The Jamie who walked into the Mayfair Grill last year no longer exists. That woman doubted her every decision, hunched her shoulders against inevitable rejection, craved approval from people who never intended to give it. The woman who runs Hayden Biotech now walks with purpose through research labs and board meetings, mentoring young executives with the same steady hand Margaret once offered me. The Montreal team developed something remarkable, I tell the board, clicking through presentation slides with confidence that once would have been impossible. Their sustainable pharmaceutical packaging will reduce plastic waste by 70% while cutting production costs. The board members, several new faces I personally recruited, nod with approval. No one questions my authority. No one reminds me I don't belong. Your leadership style is transforming this company, Elizabeth Wilson tells me after the meeting. The toxic competition under Martin has been replaced with actual innovation. I smile. People accomplish more when they aren't afraid of being undermined. That evening, my assistant handed me a letter that arrived with no return address. I recognized Ryan's handwriting immediately. You won, Jamie. Guess you were the only real one among us. I place it in my desk drawer without responding. His validation no longer matters. Sunlight streams through floor-to-ceiling windows as I stand at the podium, Hundreds of faces turned toward me. The newly completed Hayden Children's Center gleams with promise, a modern building with warm touches that make it feel like home. I spent years begging for a family that never wanted me, I say, my voice clear through the microphone. Turns out, I didn't need their approval, just my own peace. Behind me, Margaret's portrait watches over the proceedings, sunlight catching the engraved plaque beneath it. Family is built through love, not obligation. The crowd includes former board members, employees, community leaders, people who witnessed my transformation from outsider to leader. Not present are the faces that once defined my understanding of family. When the ceremony concludes, I walk to the lake's edge. From my pocket, I withdrew a check for exactly $680,000, the amount stolen from my trust fund so many years ago. The company's attorneys recovered it with interest during the legal proceedings. I tear it into pieces, watching fragments catch the breeze. I used to dream they'd say sorry, I tell Diana, who stands quietly beside me. Now I just hope they find whatever emptiness made them cruel. We watch ripples spread across the water, circles widening until they disappear into the greater whole. Behind us, the Foundation's staff prepares for tomorrow's first intake of children, while across town, Hayden biotech researchers develop treatments that will help thousands. Margaret would be proud, Diana says. I nod, feeling the truth of it settle inside me, not as validation, but as peace. Justice served, legacy secured, family is redefined by integrity rather than blood. The ripples fade. I turn toward home,